Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Tradesman Experience. This is the podcast built by tradesmen for tradesmen. My name is Josh, and in my conversation this week, I interview a gentleman by the name of Pete Neubig. He is the owner and founder of VPM Solutions, but this has been one of the most wide-ranging conversations I have had in a while. We discuss everything from power couples to leadership, to business operations, to delegations, to remote team members, and a lot of things in between. Pete is an extremely high energy, intelligent, very articulated human being, and I enjoyed my conversation with him so much, and I'm excited to share it with you here. So please listen and enjoy my conversation with Pete Neubig.
Pete, when I get the opportunity to meet somebody like you, we spent a little bit of time before the record button because it's good to prime each other, but when you can immediately connect with someone and you immediately find out how much you align on like values and beliefs and those things, it makes conversation so much faster. So, Pete, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. And tell me a little bit about you and who you are.
Josh, thank you so much for having me on the show. Really appreciate it. So my name is Pete Neubig. I reside in Houston, Texas. I have a New York accent because I'm originally from New York. So every time I say I'm from Houston, everybody's like, really? They give me that cross-eyed look. So I was in IT for many years as an employee. I decided to get into real estate. I ended up buying so many properties that I didn't know how to manage them myself. So I created a management company, ended up having a business partner. His name was Steve Rosenberg. I think he was on your show at one point. Mm-hmm. Steve and I then took the management firm. We ran that for about 7-8 years, and then we sold that. And today I own, or started at 50, I started a tech business, and I started a marketplace that connects the property management and real estate industry with remote team members, so remote workers across the world. So we have about 120 countries that we can service, and we have about 35,000 people looking for work on our platform. And so that's the really quick part of that's the real cliff notes.
That's a big piece of meat to chew on for sure. I have a question. You said that you'd started the property management company or the real estate, and then you said you got to basically so many doors that you couldn't manage them. What was the realization that you needed to change what you were doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I was buying, right? So originally, I'm a big vision guy, right? So you have to have the right vision. If you have the right vision, you can create a plan. And once you have the plan, you can execute. And then all of a sudden that vision becomes reality. Without the plan, the vision is just a dream, right? And so my vision when I started buying single family homes was that I buy so many homes that it was really, really rudimentary at the time. Was I looked at the cash flow, and once the cash flow would hit my my monthly nut, what I was making as an employee, I could retire. Like that was what I was trying to do. And I was buying these low income homes, and the reason why I was buying low income homes is because they have on paper anyway, they have a high dollar return. So example, I'd buy homes in Houston for like $35,000, $40,000. My note on that was like, let's call it $400, and I was leasing them for $800. Well, that's a $400 a month, and there's not a lot of money out of pocket. So I'm like, okay, if I make $4,000 a month and I go get 10 of those homes, I could really just make $4,000 a month, and I could quit my job. It didn't go that way. On paper, everything's perfect. Everybody leases the property and they pay what's called rent. In reality, especially on those $35,000, $40,000 a year homes, they don't pay rent. There's a lot of eviction, there's a lot of collections, and then they take home parting gifts, right? So, oh, hey, I'm leaving. I'm not paying you rent. I'm going to leave the house, and I'm going to take your AC unit, your copper wiring, your stove, your dishwasher, whatever you supply there. I'm going to take it all. But what happened was I didn't realize the management intensive, how because you're taught real estate is passive. is what you're taught. If you listen to Kiyosaki or
Mhm.
any of these real estate investment groups that you go to and these mentors, they say, oh, buy property, it's passive, it's wealth building. Well, it's not passive. It's very active, especially the lower income properties you buy, the more active they are. You still got to lease the property. You got to run the credit checks. You got to collect the rent. You got to take all those maintenance requests. By the way, older properties, a lot more maintenance. My maintenance guy is the only one who made money on those properties that I owned. So it was super management intensive. And then I find out that most management companies don't want to, they're called Class D properties. They're low income properties. Most management companies don't want to service those low income properties. I didn't know that back then why, but I know now, right? Because they're super intensive. You don't make any money. Your small management fee just doesn't cover the amount of time it takes. So with that being said, I decided, okay, let me just create a management company and my management firm will just be for my properties. And I had a business partner. His name was Steve, and Steve is an ultimate salesman. And next thing I know, I'm managing 67 doors, but I only own like 35 doors. I'm like, what the heck are we doing here? He goes, oh yeah, well, so-and-so needed help and so-and-so needed help. And he's slipping these into my system. And I'm I'm managing double the doors. And then what we found, and this, Josh, this is the really crazy thing. At the end of the year, we found out that the properties that we owned didn't make any money, but the management firm did. And I literally had to take a distribution from the management firm company. The management firm had an LLC. I made a distribution to me and Steve, and we had to make a contribution into the property company,
Wow.
property
Yep.
LLC, to pay tax insurance at the end of the year. And that was when the light bulb went off. We had an aha moment. Like, okay, why don't we build a business? And so it took me a couple of years, but I got rid of all those low income properties. Today, I sold everything except for I got 8 properties that we call them Class B. So less management. And then to make them truly passive, because I know all the property managers in Houston, because I was one, I basically gave them over to a property management firm that I trust. And now they manage my 8 properties. So they are pretty passive at this point, but they still to this day do not make enough money. They don't make as much money as I did when I was working as the IT job 20 years ago.
Gee. There's that. I'm processing because there's a lot to unpack there. But let's go ahead and just keep moving forward with the fact that what made you start the property management company instead of just looking over and going, hey, there's a property management company. Let's ask them to take over.
Yeah, a couple of things. That actually is a really good question, because one is I never wanted to be like, we're taught when you go to school, get good grades, get a good job, and then get your ladder out, put it up on the corporate building, and climb up the ladder. And I for a small while I subscribed to that, and but I had come to a point. I think I was like 30 years old, and I guess I had my midlife crisis a little earlier than most people. But I was making good money, Josh. I really was. I was making 6 figures a year in year 2000. I'm making $105,000 a year. It's year 2000. But every time I went into that office, a piece of me would just die and fleck off. And so I come back home one day and I just tell my wife, I said, I can't do this anymore. Like, I cannot be here anymore. I'm like, so I want to start a management firm and I'm going to pay myself $1,000 a month. That's right. I went from $105,000 a year to $12,000 a year. And so there's a couple of rules here, right? So rule number 1 is make sure you marry the right person, right? That's the first thing. Because if you have a dream and you want to take an action to it to make it like a true vision, and you want to start a business, buy real estate, whatever it is, and your significant other, in this case my wife, is not part of that, and she's resistant to it, you're never going to get there. I would meet people in the real estate investment group, and I would meet the husband, but the wife would never show up. And I'm like, that's your dream, that's not hers. And if she can't even show up to this, there's no way she's supporting you at home. And a great number of those guys ended up getting divorced, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing was financially, I had paid off all my debt. My wife was making money so she can cover our mortgage. We did have a couple of rentals that were doing okay that would cover the mortgage. So if not me, who, if not then, when. So I think there's a couple of things there. I was preparing for this moment without really understanding I was preparing for the moment. And the last piece of it was, honestly, I needed to do it because I couldn't find anybody to do it. I didn't know single family property management existed. I knew multifamily property management existed. I didn't know single family management existed. The internet was in its infancy, so I couldn't just Google property management. So I found one guy that did it. But I just realized I can build a better mousetrap than he could. And I'm an operational guy by nature. The IT thing kind of feeds into that. And so I just told my business partner who I own the properties with, like, hey, I think I could build a better mousetrap. So we literally created an org chart, put, what it would take to run this new business that we thought we invented the single family property management business. 2 years later, I find out there's a whole organization. There's thousands of people that do this. I just didn't know it at the time. And he and I would put, we were in every box. One thing, when you build an org chart, two people can't go into one box, right? One person has to own it. I'm a big personality profile guy, if you're familiar with DISC, but he was the outgoing guy. He was the more salesy guy. So we gave him all the sales stuff. I got all the operational stuff. He got the marketing. I got the IT stuff. Obviously, I got the HR. So basically there's certain fundamentals of business, right? Marketing, sales, HR, IT, and finance. He got two, I got the other three. And we literally created some structure. Before that, if a resident called, they would call him, then they would call me. And then I would call her back and he would call her back. It was like complete chaos.
Oh, yeah.
And if your business is in chaos, so this is a good tidbit, you could probably maybe split this out. But if your business is in chaos, you will not make money. Nobody makes money during chaos. I don't care if the chaos is because of growing, because we had chaos for many years in our business as we were growing the business. And guess what? We're losing people just as much on the back end. We're not charging people what we're supposed to charge them. Lots of things get fallen off the plate. And so when your business is in chaos,
how do you remove yourself enough from the business to recognize when you're in chaos?
Yeah. Well, I think when you're in chaos, like the stress level is up, things are just not, like, there's no order to what's going on. Okay. And chaos can be created in many ways. For us, it was growth. We bought too many houses too quickly, or we were managing properties and we had no systems in place, or you hire the wrong people, right? So early on, when we started Empire Property Management, our property management business, we didn't believe that we deserved good people. Okay. Because we weren't paying a lot of money. We didn't have benefits. Like why would anybody come work here when they can go work for, a big company, like a Chase Bank, so to speak. Right. So we didn't believe that we good people. So what happens is you attract the people that are not good. Right. You're not attracting the top talent. So the first thing we had to do is we had to believe in ourselves, believe in the company. And environment matters, by the way. We used to office out of one of my apartment complexes that was a Class D in the ghetto in Houston, like drug dealers, pimps, all living on property. And that was where we started our property management business. So what kind of people do you think we attracted to come work for us? Right? It's the same thing when we advertised. There's a guy in New York. His name was Crazy Eddie. He got indicted for stealing a bunch of money, but he used to be like, I'm Crazy Eddie, and we're slashing prices. And he's like one of these furniture guy things. These crazy furniture guys, like, we're giving away deals. Our website and our marketing was like that. And so we attracted, guess what we attracted? People who only cared about how much, right? We didn't know, there was no value proposition. So whether it's the wrong target audience you're trying to collect as customers, or the wrong target people that you're trying to collect as team members, that's going to create chaos in your business, and it's going to make things way difficult for you to make any money, to be profitable.
One, I would love to have a conversation with you and your wife, because I truly believe that when you have someone that's high entrepreneurial spirit, that partner is everything. And
Great.
I've got like 100 questions that I would like to ask her. That would help the significant
And I'll
others
tell
and a
you
lot of the
this,
people.
my wife is the complete opposite of me when it comes to this stuff. Like, I'm the entrepreneur. My wife worked for Marathon Oil Company for 20 years. She just retired. Right. So
Awesome.
she is like not the risk taker. She is the corporate ladder, but she still saw how important this was to me. And and here's the thing. When I was down, the business is taking off. I'm working 80 hours a week. By the way, if anybody tells you that the 4-hour work week to start a business, good luck, right? It doesn't happen. And if it does, it's like, God bless you. You won the lotto too, right? People win the lotto, I guess, too. But man, I was down the dumps, and it just, everything was hitting the fan. And she looks at me and she goes, are you having fun still? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm right, not in this moment, I'm not, but I'm having more fun. And I don't regret quitting my job ever. She goes, I believe in you. I still get emotional because it means so much.
Yep.
I believe in you. Like, more than I believed in myself. And that's what made me, grow this thing. And we became very successful in that business. And my second business, it's the same thing happened, right? She's like, I believe in you. Let's do, like, you did it once. Like, why not do it again? Because when I sold the first business, I invested a huge portion of that money into the second business. And if you know anything about, like, so service-based business, right? So your clients are service-based, your customers are kind of service-based guys, right? Your audience. Well, it's easy to hang up a shingle and get a hammer if you can hammer everything, right? If you're a plumber by nature, it's really easy to start that business. There's not a lot of money, right? You have to buy some equipment, but there's not a huge outlay of cash, okay? It's the same thing with property management. I had to outlay some money for marketing and stuff, but at the end of the day, I was able to do all, because we're service-based, right? Well, even though I was in IT, I was not a developer. So when you build a tech company, you have to hire developers. And I can tell you one thing: developers are not cheap. and so you need to spend, and then you don't even know if the product you're building is going to be worth it. Like, you're in $200,000-$400,000 before you even have what's called a minimum viable product, before you can even test it. Whereas if I go hang out a shingle and somebody wants plumbing, I know pretty quickly, within a few months, if I got a gig or not, if I got a business or not. So, so her let me, now I'm in my 50s. When I sold the business, she's like, I believe in you. Let's go ahead and go for it. So something completely new, completely different, but she saw in me with some of the things that I didn't see in myself, because not too many 50-year-olds start tech businesses. Let's be honest, right?
Yeah. It's, well, I mean, stereotypically, it's a 20-something game, right? People in their early 20s kind of thing. Having that home team. My girl's that way. Like, even if she doesn't understand the vision, she believes in me. And now I know, we've got to have hard conversations, and you got to get buy-in, and they need to know what that vision is. But the same thing, it's like, when you're grinding it out and you're working 80, 90 hours a week, and you're exhausted and you haven't slept, and just that the power of having somebody on your home team to literally say, look, I believe in you.
Yep.
I think you're doing it right.
So I did a couple of things too. Like, my wife and my partner's wife were not involved in the business. Right. So people who have a husband and wife team, they're involved in a business, that's good, because the wife knows everything that's going on with the business. My wife didn't. So what we would do is we would actually create quarterly meetings, and the four of us would go to dinner, and we'd put on the business. Even if the business couldn't afford it, we still put on the business. And I would come to the meeting basically with like an overview of the last quarter. I'd come with financials. I'd come with where we're going, what we did, what are some of the challenges we had. It just so that the wives, we actually put them on the board of directors, right? So they were on the board of directors, but this way they knew what was going on. And sometimes great ideas come from those who are not connected to the business, and then they would give us ideas for goals for the next quarter. So I thought it was really important that they stay connected. They don't have to be in the business, but they stay connected some way in the business.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. I coach several businesses that are husband-wife, in business involved. Most of my clients are what you're describing. The spouse is not involved in the business, but the couples that I do coach, I try to tell them, I said, look, the success of the business is going to be directly impacted by the success of you as a couple.
100%.
And so again, building that, that synergy, that trust, all of the things, not just as business partners, but as spouse. It's like, and it's amazing too, when you see it happen, when you see it click, how much more powerful they are as entrepreneurs and as leaders and as business
They
owners.
become power couples.
Oh man,
Right?
it's so great. Yeah.
Like, look, I know Hollywood, they write these love stories and stuff, but when I met my wife and I decided that this is the person I was going to marry, I actually looked at, is she a good partner? Like, it wasn't just like, is she attractive? Like, that's obviously a piece of it, but man, let's be honest. There's so many attractive people, male and female, out there that can't just be it, right? What are the core values that this person has that's going to make them a good partner? Do they align with my core values? And so, the way I got my wife and the way I, made her my life partner is the same way I look at team members, potential team members. Once I realized I do deserve good people, I looked at what are my core values as a person. And then we created core values in an organization. And I'm not just talking about, we created core values and then we put them on a piece of paper and then we plastered it on the building, in a nice poster. Like, our core values, we hired, fired, promoted based on our core values. Every meeting we had, every company meeting we had, every month, we talked about core values. We gave examples of people who worked for us and how they, embodied our core values. To me, the core values they mean so much personally and professionally, that you want to attract people. You want to be around people that have those same values as you.
Mhm. So how did you change the narrative to where you started to believe that that you could be better as a person, and that you could attract better people, and that you could build better quality people and a better quality business? How did you, one, how did you recognize that was really the problem? And two, how did you change that narrative?
I was fortunate that we had a coach. I'm a big believer. If you're listening to this and you're not using Josh as a coach, or you don't have a business coach, I think you're doing yourself a disservice, right? The easy answer is, like, even Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods had a coach. Like, the coach helps you grow. I also believe that if you're not growing as a person, then your organization only grows to the level of the competency of the leader, right? So it was important to Steve and I that we continuously grown as people and as business owners. So the coach really was helpful. And I'll never forget that. I remember the day. So the coach decides, well, normally we go to his office, right? And he's like some nice high-rise office, right? So he decides that he's going to make a road trip and come to our office. So he drives his little Mercedes into our parking lot, parks, and he comes into our, we're like these old stinky duplexes, just like terrible part of town. He comes in and he's got this worried look on his face. And he says to me, he goes, "Hey man, is my car going to be okay out there?" I go, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure they know you're with us. It might be in cinder blocks when you get out, but the car will be there." So he then decided, he goes, "You know what? I'm going to scrap everything I was going to talk to you about today. We're going to talk about environment, and environment matters." And so after that conversation, about a month or two later, we moved to a Class A building. Really small office space. It's what we can afford, because I was cheap, man. I'm a cheap guy. I don't want to spend money, and I own the apartment complex. So having the office there be our office just made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how much I was hurting the business. And so that was the first, step in my, hey, we deserve better people. Because once we were in a Class A building, we had a little, like, welcome to the building type thing. And my attorney came. And my attorney pulls me aside. And he's like in his 60s at this point. His name is Michael Boltz. Great man. He's still practicing. He's like in his 70s now. And he says to me, he goes, "Pete," and unsolicited, he goes, you're going to make a lot of money because of this building. And that was really when what my business coach was telling me that really hit home when my attorney said that environment matters. And from that point on, I knew we deserved a higher level quality of person and we were attracting a higher level quality of people. We also changed our complete website and we changed our pricing model. We started, instead of being the lowest property management firm in Houston, we were the most expensive, and we built our whole marketing on quality. So if you're listening to this and you're one of these guys that try to undercut everybody, all you're doing is you're basically working yourself out of, basically working yourself to debt, because you're not going to make the money. You have to not only sell on quality, but you have to provide the image of quality. And I know that sounds stupid, but it's not, it's true though. Like if I go like, what's that shoe store that everything is super cheap? And man, I'm trying to make a really good point here. Okay. If I go buy a shirt at like Walmart, I expect it to be like $5, right? That same flipping shirt in Macy's might be $25. And if it's in like this one of these like little boutique stores, I might pay $65 or $125. So the marketing matters. Once we started marketing as high quality, guess who we attracted? Not just high quality clients, but high quality team members. It worked both ways, right? I'll never forget. We had this one client. They had a $10,000 a month rental. They came to our office when we were in the ghetto, and I didn't win that business. Is that a shocker? But yet the guy who owns 60 doors in the ghetto, or 4 doors in the ghetto, whatever it is, we're right perfect for him. So we're attracting the wrong clientele. So if you're out there and you are literally getting the bottom of the barrel clients that only care about, doing the least possible for the least amount of money, you need to look at your, how are you dressed? What does your car look like? Everything is marketing. Your website, how you answer the phone, the type of team that you have, that all matters. And you can make a shit ton. You can make a lot more money. I don't know where we are.
This is a very explicit podcast, so
yeah, you can make a shit ton more money by changing image.
Yeah. So the money aspect, how would you explain to people to overcome that monetary barrier that they have, where they kind of impose their buying power onto their client, or they think it's that they're too expensive? Because I think that part of that, it definitely aligns with, self-image. And I like that you said the perception of quality, but the individual, the business owner, because this is something that I have a lot of conversations about. People are scared to death to raise their prices. Even if it's $5 an hour on their operating costs, they're like, I'm going to price myself out of the market. What would you say to them? How can they change that narrative and that understanding?
That's a great question. I don't know if I have a right answer for it. I can tell you that you can shop around and see what some of your competition is doing, and you'll be surprised on how much money they're charging people. That's one. The second thing that I've been taught is increase your prices, right? So here's the thing. We at Empire, we actually wanted to add another fee. We called it the technology fee. It was a one-time fee, and it was, I think, $50 for the year. And we hit it in January, right? And we were super nervous, like, oh my God. But we were spending more money on technology to support our clients, right? And so we hit the button, charged everybody. And I had 2 people complain out of, I think, 600, right? Maybe like 300. I had 2 people complain. I waived the fee for them the first year. The second year they paid it. And I had one guy leave us. So now that guy who left us, he was worth about $2,000 a year. Okay. But take the 50 times it by 600, and it's more than $2,000 a year. When you increase your prices, are you going to lose clients? Absolutely. But it's going to be a lot smaller percentage than you think. And you're going to make a lot more money with less clients. At the end of the day, you want to make more money with less clients, because then there's less operational impact on the business. You don't want one client to be 100% of your business, but you want to have less clients and you want to make more money per hour. So I would keep increasing prices until you get fired. Right now, how you change that mentally in your head, Start, change your marketing, get a business coach. Because I was the cheap guy, man. Like I was an investor that owned stuff in the low income. I couldn't believe if people paid $1,200 in rent back then. I'm like, you mean to tell me somebody will pay $1,200 in rent? Because I had this mindset that my rent's $800. I was paying $1,200 in a mortgage. So I equated that as no one would, like, if you're going to pay $1,200, just buy a house. And it took one of my property managers, one of the first people I hired, her name was Lisa. She's like, people will pay $1,200 every month. I guarantee it. And I said, show me. And boy, did she. She brought in new clients and it was like 12, 13. Next thing you know, our average rent, which was like $700, was now at like $1,200 and eventually got to $1,500. And so sometimes it takes somebody if you're somebody in your organization is also saying, hey, we need to change this or we need to increase the pricing. Good ideas come from everywhere. The bags fly free, right? Southwest Airlines, that came from a baggage handler, right? That didn't come from the top. That the CEO. So if you're the owner of the company, you have some people working with you. By the way, I don't like saying they work for you. I like people work with you, right? We're a team.
Same.
Right? Together, everything achieved. Everybody achieves more, right? So I'm a big fan of that, and I'm a big fan of I listen to everything, no matter how crappy it is. By the way, when we had remote team members at Empire, some of the remote team members actually had great ideas. So they can come from anywhere. They can come from Mexico, Philippines, or right in your backyard. You have to listen to it and process it. And if you're so stuck in your ways, if you're not growing, you're dying. If your business isn't growing, it's dying. And if you're not growing, you're dying. And and if you're not happy where you are, look around and you can see a price change is probably something that'll get you more financially free. And look, I know money doesn't solve all the problems, and money doesn't solve happiness, but it sure as shit helps, man.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it gives you buying power, to solve problems.
100%.
And investing in a coach, that's it's interesting. I think it's one of those ROIs that people don't consider because they look at it and go, well, I can't afford a coach. You can't afford to not have a coach. I mean,
you took the words out of my mouth. Yeah.
It's because you're going to expedite that growth. They're going to, somebody with an outside perspective is going to help you make new strategic plans, tactical decisions. Sometimes, and I've seen this a lot in companies, is they'll make more money to the bottom line just by saying no to work that they don't need to be doing.
Oh yeah, because
they don't even replace it.
They lose money on. Yeah,
it's crazy. They hate doing it. The client's a pain in the ass. They don't make any money. And I'm like, what? Why are you continuing
just to be busy?
Just to be busy.
So early on in my career, when I was an IT guy, I used to work like 70 to 80 hours a week. Right. And I wasn't getting paid hourly. Right. And my self-worth was equated to the number of hours I worked. And I took this over into the new company when I built it. My self-worth was based on, I had a badge of honor. I showed up early than everybody. I stayed later. I did all this stuff. Now, granted, there was a lot of work that needed to be done. But near the end, I was working about 4 hours a day. So 20 hours a week. I'd go in late. I'd leave before everybody. And I didn't give two shits anymore. But it took a long time for me to be able to come to grips that I'm not the hardest working guy anymore. And if you're a grinder, I get it. And you should be an entrepreneur as a grinder, but you have to learn to let go to grow because you're just going to grind yourself out to you're going to burn out. And so, and the reason why people don't grow, Josh, is because they're scared. They don't know what that means. They know, like say in your case, right? I know how to be an HVAC guy, right? What I don't know is how to hire people. What I don't know is how to manage operations. What I don't know is how do I get 3 guys in trucks and how to get them to the right spot. What I don't know is about customer service. What I don't, and so what happens is you get analysis paralysis, you get scared. And so you just stay as the one guy. And I don't even know how to relate to people when they tell me, yeah, I tried hiring one person one time. It didn't work out. So now I just do it myself. Like, to me, that is like, I would just drive me crazy. Mm-hmm. And so having this is not like, big coaching thing, but but having a coach helps you get through that. Having a coach helps you break through some of your self-limiting beliefs. And I'm just like, I have a coach right now. I'm trying to lose a bunch of weight, and I hired a fitness coach. When I did an Ironman triathlon, I'm a 3-time Ironman triathlon finisher. I hired a coach. When I wanted to run a fast marathon, I hired a coach. Why would you not hire a business coach?
Yep. Yeah, it makes it, and that's the thing is people have areas of their life where it makes sense, right? Financials, like, oh, I can get a financial advisor or somebody help me with investing. Oh, fitness, or I can hire a fitness coach. It's the same application. If there's an area in your life that you're wanting to grow and expedite that growth, you need to hire a coach. Plain and simple. Something you said if you're not letting go, you're not going to grow. How? Yeah. Where do people need to begin the process of delegation, of letting go?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to try to stay in your industry. Okay. I don't know it super well, but I know it a little bit because I work with tradesmen all the time with my property management firm. And I can tell you some of the challenges that I've seen some of these guys. I had one guy, he was a great plumber. I gave him so much business because I connected him with other property managers. He literally grew the business to the point where it failed. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about that, right? So why did it fail? Because he did not have systems in place. He did not have people in place. At the end of the year, okay, I give him stuff all the way from January. In December, he would send me stuff like, hey, I need these invoices. I'm like, from January? I'm like, exactly. I saw your face go crazy, right? So one of the things that I see that a lot of the trades people do is they go out and they're driving around all day and they go from house to house or job to job and they do the work and they do it themselves or they have a helper. And I commend you guys for that. Okay. Then what happens is you put in like 12-hour days. Now you get home at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. You shower up. Now you have to do all your paperwork. Now is when you have to do your invoicing or your estimates because you got to go kill the next piece of meat to eat. Right. And so what I've found, one of the biggest challenges I had as a property management firm is I could not get invoices from people. Couldn't get them. But they wouldn't send me invoices. And so the first thing I would say is if you're doing everything and you're staying up late or you're making your poor wife go to work and then she has to work for you at night because you're giving all these crumpled up pieces of paper and here's the Home Depot receipt and here's my hours and she has to build the invoice. The first thing I would say is, hire an assistant, whether they're virtual or whether they're in your business, and that person, they can communicate with you, right? So when you're on the job, you take the photos, you send it to that assistant. That assistant now is creating the estimate for you. You don't have to go home and make the estimate. When you're doing a job, you take the before, you take the after photo, right? If you're working for an investor or anybody who's not at the house, they want to see proof. Right? Before and after. By the way, if you send a nice report, before and after photos, you can charge more for your hours, right? So it's value. You can do little videos. You can send all this to your assistant and your assistant can literally create all the invoicing. So when you leave a job, guess what's happening? Invoices being sent. You don't have to come home and give all the crinkly papers to your wife and have her do it or stay up late at night to do it. That's what I mean by kind of letting go to grow. Right now, over time, it's like, the next thing you want to become is you just want to be the estimator and have somebody else do the job. Well, hire in this case, hire the plumber guy, right? So hire somebody who's really new. By the way, I love hiring. We talked about this in the green room, Josh. I love hiring by attitude, making sure that their personality profile fits. For you guys, they need some technical skills. So I'd hire on attitude and I would give them some tests on making sure that they can do something, right? Maybe they come work for me for a couple of days or a week. I'll pay them, but they don't have the job yet, right? And then I make them do some of the plumbing work, right? And eventually what you do is you move up, right? So now you're not doing the low level plumbing. You're only doing the high level plumbing. Now you're not doing the plumbing and the estimates. You're just doing the estimates. Then you learn how to do the estimates. Then you hire an estimate guy, right? Then you hire the senior plumber guy. So now you have the senior guy that does and as you're doing this, you're kind of growing up, you're kind of going up the ladder, because when you're the plumber, you're kind of on ground floor, right? Now you raise yourself up, like as the estimator. Okay, now you're about 1,000 feet up. Now you raise yourself up. Now you have a team, right? And now you're at the 10,000 level, so you can kind of see what's going on. And if you're just going out every day and all you're doing is like, I got 3 plumbing jobs to do, or however many jobs, and that's all you're doing all day long, every day, where are you going to be in 5 years? You're going to be the same exact place. Right. So what is your vision? So it's important that you have a vision for why are you doing this? If it's just to put food on the table, there's a lot easier ways to make money than slogging through shit as a plumber. Right. So like, what are you trying to accomplish? And if you want to be a solopreneur, that's fine. Hire one assistant, do this, and know that you're only going to do so many tickets. Your level of wealth is only going to hit a certain threshold. Your level of income is only going to hit a certain level of threshold. You're going to break through those levels as you hire people, right? And so if you are a true entrepreneur, then you should be looking at how many trucks do I want to put out there? How big do I want to make the service area? Do I want to get into other areas? These are things that you could think through. To me, they're super fun. To other people, they may give them agita, right? Like they may give them heart palpitations.
Yeah. In your example, when there's a technician, in this case, the plumber, when there's a plumber going from job to job to job and not invoicing right there, not collecting right then if they can. What these business owners and these technicians don't understand is the second you leave that job without collecting, you are now financing that job.
100%. That's correct.
So there's no cash flow.
And it's a cash gap. It's a cash gap. Because a lot of times you guys are buying or using material for that deal. So you're literally out of pocket. So you're financing a job and you're waiting to get your money. And if they're on a net 30, that's if you send them the invoice that day. You have a cash gap there. And that's what happened to this plumber guy in my example. He had such a cash gap, he went out of business. So I grew his business so to the point where he ran out of business.
Yeah. And I love to hear you say that, because I know that's a real thing, but most people think that more business is better business. And it's like, oh, if I get more calls, then I'll be successful. If I get more clients, I'll be successful. Well, if you don't have the infrastructure to handle more calls, more clients, more work, more money, it doesn't matter how much influx you have. You're going to go out. You're going to go under. And when I look at infrastructure, it's the application of delegation. Who do I need? Where do I need these people? What systems do we have? What does delegation look like? When you're talking about going from, in the trenches to 1,000-foot view to up and sharing your vision, what are some of the good skills that these people need to learn that's also going to help them elevate through that?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know if I have a great answer for that, because I used to have my team get coached by our business coach as well. So I would go see him weekly, and my team would see him, I think, quarterly. My management team would see him monthly. So I would start bringing people to different seminars. So like, let's just say there's a big, I don't know, maintenance seminar in your hometown. Like, send your guys. I get it. If they're not in the truck, they're not making money for you. But if you can, every once in a while, take a day or half a day. And I don't know, in that business, I just don't know if it's possible, but I'm a big fan of like, how do I continuously train my team so that junior plumber can become a master plumber at some point? And one of the fears that people have is, if I train my team, they'll leave me. And what I say to that is, what if you don't train your team and they stay? Right? Like, I don't want to like, think about that, right? I don't want to elevate my team because they might leave. Like, that's crazy. Like, if you have a terrible culture, the good people are going to leave you regardless, and the shit people are going to stay with you. And what happens also is, if you have a really bad teammate and you don't do anything about it, the good team will leave. I had this happen to me. That's why I know. Like, when my business coach told me, I'm like, nah, that's stupid. No one's going to leave. And then I literally had one girl leave because another girl was like not doing her job, and we wouldn't get rid of her. She left because of that. I'm like, wow, that was eye opening. So I think, not everybody it's like, what is the old saying? The world needs ditch diggers too, right? There's going to be some guys that they just want to go out and turn a wrench. They don't want to do this voodoo magic stuff of learning. And I get that. And so some people, like, you gotta understand, like, some people are going to be happy just doing what they're doing, and that's fine. And don't force them to learn anymore, but just also know that they're never going to make a lot more money than they're making today, because they haven't learned new skills. As people elevate, we promote them. And what promotion means, typically more money or some kind of bonus structure. And so a lot of people want to do that, but I don't really have the right answer, I guess. I just have some ideas on how to do it.
I think a lot of business owners have this misunderstanding that because they own the business, that they also have to be in charge of running the business. And you can hire someone to run the business. You can have an operations manager. You can hire an estimator. If you want to be in the truck, or if you want to be doing the work, yeah, you can own it, but you can create systems and hire people to, even if it's not a lot of people, but if you don't want to run the company, then hire someone to run the company.
You still have to learn the skills of how to read the financials. You still like there's just some things, like if you still want to be the chuck in the truck but you want to have a business, you have your director of operations, a couple of things that I see that are challenges there. One is you still have to learn and grow. But two is, and I've seen this happen in a couple of different companies where they do hire the CEO and the owner reports to the CEO, but then the owner's the owner. So what happens when a CEO tells this person to do something, they flip around, they use the owner card.
Yep.
And so if you're going to be that guy and you're not going to trust your CEO, then you have to learn the skill sets, and you have to be the CEO or director of operations, whatever you want to call that position. So I would just be weary. If you're not that guy, you just want to be chuck in a truck, then maybe owning a business isn't for you. And maybe being a solopreneur is the right move. And there's nothing wrong with a solopreneur. I don't want to make this like, oh my God, you have to build a business. There's a lot of solopreneurs that make a really, really nice living. You could be a solopreneur and have a couple of assistants, and you can literally just do what. So one of the things that I do early on is I identify everything that I do. Okay. So I think, I forget what my business partner used to call it. It's a diary. You do a diary of everything you do. Okay. So I'm doing the work. I'm going to Home Depot. I'm setting up accounts. I'm invoicing. I'm estimating. I'm calling people. I'm taking all the sales calls. I'm doing some marketing, whatever it is, right? Everything you write it all down. Okay. And then from there you say, these are the things that I dislike the most. Right? These 3 or 4 things. And then you create a job description based on those 3 or 4 things. And if those 3 or 4 things are the same personality type, and I know I'm a big personality profile guy. So for example, you can't have accounting and sales calls in the same job description. They're completely different types. One's an extrovert, one's an introvert, one's not detailed, one's super detailed. But if you can say, okay, I need somebody to do these 3 things, and they're about the same personality type, you can go find somebody to do that. So do a diary, run a diary for a week. Also build an org chart. Now, your name, if you're a solopreneur, go and put your name in everything. Like Steve and I had 2 names in every, everything we did. And then what you do is you say, okay, if I can afford 50% of this salary and they can do it as 80% as good as me, then you go hire that position. So what we used to do is we used to create an org chart, right? We have all the positions. I would create a job description for each box in the org chart. And then I would highlight in like pink the next 5 positions I want to hire. And when I hit certain revenue thresholds, I would then know that, okay, I'm going to hire this person. And then each role not only had a definitive job description, but we had what's called key performance indicators. So these are the metrics that I'm going to use so I know that person's doing a good job. All right. So an example might be, if I'm going to hire somebody that's going to, do invoicing, well, the metric is going to be, every 90% of invoice have to get out within 24 hours. That's the metric. Right. And so you have to figure out a way to measure that. But I'm just throwing an idea out there.
Yep.
And then your job is, okay, well, I'm going to sit with you weekly. right? First, I'm going to train the crap out of you, and that might take 2 to 4, 6 weeks, however long it takes. I'm going to make you record the training. You're going to rewatch it, and you're going to create the manual yourself. Like, so you're going to build your own manual. And then you're going to report back to me how we do this. And then the first 30 days, you're going to escalate all the stuff to me, and I'm going to, critique it. And after that, you're on your own, and I should get 20%, like 80-20 rule. That needs to get escalated. And now, yes, it will take time to do that. It takes you time to find somebody. It takes you time to interview. It takes you time to hire. It takes you time to train. I get all that. But let's just say that took you 50 hours total time. But now, invoicing used to take you 3 hours a night. Okay? You never have to do it ever again.
Mm-hmm.
And when a person wants to leave, they can hire the person. They can, now everything is documented, right? And if you're not sure if that person's doing a good job or not, it's really easily. You have a weekly meeting with them, all right? And you go over the KPIs. And it becomes, now you're managing by numbers, not by feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I hate when people say, well, I feel like Josh isn't doing a good job. Like, what the fuck does that mean?
So true. So true. And what's ridiculous about that is if you feel like I'm not doing a good job, if we peel that all the way back to the beginning, it's probably because you have me in a role that doesn't complement my strengths, or I don't have clear understandings of what my expectations are, or I know that I'm on this bus and I have no fucking idea where we're going. Right. So there's so much of that has to preface the operational piece of the position. Yep. And if you're just looking at feelings, go, I feel like he doesn't want to be here. It's not that I don't want to be here. I just don't know where we're going. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing.
I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. You never gave me a job description. The job description had one line in it: all duties assigned by management. What the hell does that mean, right?
Yeah, do it because I said so.
Yeah, do it because I said so.
Yeah.
And you're right. I didn't touch on that, but you're right. Like, you need to know where the vision of the company, where we're going, what we're trying to accomplish, what are our core values, what do we, core values to me are kind of like when you have something that comes across your desk that's pretty difficult as a decision. The core values guideline that, right? Like, maybe somebody overpaid you, right? Well, so I know some guys that'll be like, ha, 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 and they put it in their pocket, right? But if your core value is integrity, it's not even an option. Like, you don't even discuss it. Like, your team just sends it right back.
Yep.
Right? Like, they double paid something, like, and they didn't know. Like, it's like whatever it is, right? It's just like, and so if you don't, if you don't like discuss the core values with who you're hiring, you don't give them a complete job description, bullet pointed out. It doesn't have to tell you how to do the job. That's in training, right? But it should tell you what they're responsible for, along with KPIs. If you don't have the right personality profile, and you don't like tell them where you're going, as a company, as an organization, it's every piece that you don't do adds a percentage of this is going to fail. And then you hear I tried hiring an assistant once. It didn't work. So I'm making my wife do it again. And we're getting divorced in 2 years. Oh, yeah. We're getting divorced next month. So now I got to go figure out how to get it. But she's still going to be the assistant for me, but now I got to pay her. Right. Like,
yep. Yeah. It's a terrible recipe. And, when you're looking at delegation, there has to be a trust factor. And the only way that you're going to build that trust is by investing into those people, is by pouring into those people, and is by onboarding them and having conversations and weekly meetings and KPIs and reinstating roles, responsibilities, and expectations, and asking them, okay, you've been here for a month with this, doing this position. How do you think we can improve it? What do you think we can do better? What do you see that's not working that I'm missing? And now by doing that conversation, you're creating buy-in. Buy-in creates value. Value creates better implementation. And now you're continuing to grow and develop a team.
I love it. When someone in your team takes ownership of their process, you got them. Mm-hmm. They're all in. When somebody's sitting there waiting for you to tell them what to change in the process, that's the wrong person in that seat. Like ownership, accountability, responsibility. When people take that over their job, then you have the right person.
The The only piece I would add to that, Pete, is if you've got somebody in a position that's not taking ownership of it, for me, that because my focus is so much on leadership, the first thing I have to do is I have to ask myself the question, have I empowered that person to take ownership? So as a
Yeah.
leader, or have I enabled them to only count on me for making decision? And I think with delegation, a piece that a lot of people miss is you have to give authority that's equivalent to the delegation, that's equivalent to the role. Because if all I'm doing is task assigning you things and not giving you any authority, I'm expecting you to come to me for all answers and all decisions, and I'm not empowering you at all.
No, and you
So
become the bottleneck.
that's right. So how can you take ownership of the role? You can't, because I'm the limiting factor as the leader.
Yep.
And so I think that happens a lot too. You have people. This is something that I think comes with leadership maturity, but immature leaders, they don't think that people want more responsibility. And it's the furthest thing from the truth.
Right.
High performers they not only want responsibility, they want to know what's expected of them, because they're gonna hit that mark. They're going to achieve, they want to get past that. High performers want to be above the standard. But if they don't know what that is, if you're not giving them that responsibility, they're waiting on you and waiting for another opportunity to come up so they can leave you. Because I don't think people leave jobs. I think they leave leaders. If I have an HVAC technician that leaves for another $1 or $2 an hour to another company, they didn't leave the job. They're doing the same job.
That's
They,
right.
they left the leader.
Yeah, they didn't leave for the money. It's only a couple of bucks more. They left the leader. They left the culture.
Mhm.
Yeah. People don't leave jobs. They leave bosses.
Yep.
Right? There's a good book called The 1 Minute Manager. I can't remember who the author is. It's a quick read, and it literally talks about, redirecting. So if somebody
Mhm.
comes to you and you're the answer guy, this book will help you not be the answer guy. Right. My coach used to call it superhero-itis. So I had this big time when I first started my business, because I was not a mature, manager, leader, business owner. And I used to love when there'd be a line out my office, right, getting answers. And I would take my shirt off, and there's my red S, and I've got my cape on, and here I come to save the day. And finally, I learned, like, I'm the limiter. I'm limiting
Mhm.
these folks. I'm limiting. And once I learned, okay, to redirect, so the redirect is very simple. Like, hey, Pete, what should we do with this? Well, Josh, what do you think we should do?
Mhm.
Right? What are your,
Right.
like? And I'm like, that's a great, like, if I wasn't here, what would you done if I was away, right? And so I finally learned that, and all of a sudden now I was down to 4 hours a day working instead of
Yeah.
14. It was a beautiful thing.
What we implemented was, because I learned the same thing. I learned that I was the limiting factor, and it became limiting when I became less accessible to my team because I had other responsibilities. And once I recognized that I was the easy button, we had a huge team meeting about it. And the thing that I loved about my team was the culture of it. Because when I explained the easy button concept, they literally laughed because they knew it was 100% right. So what we implemented was, you couldn't bring me a problem unless you had at least one solution.
I love that idea.
And it wasn't about them. The solution, it was not about right or wrong. It was about the fact that you took time to think about it. And then you brought him, said, hey, this is what I got. This is what I think we should do. But I wanted to have a conversation about it. And it was brilliant. It was one of the few things, I probably got two or three things, but it was one of the two or three things in my company that completely shifted everything about my operations literally overnight. The other thing that it empowered my team to do, if I had a guy on the rooftop of a surgery center working on an 80-ton unit, and it's like an instant emergency, and he would call me up and he would say, hey, I've got a tech question. I've got this going on. He didn't need, we didn't need to go, well, what do you think we should do? So what they did is they would say, hey, I need an easy button. This is the problem I've got.
I
And
love
I
it.
would, go, okay, did you check this, and this? And he's like, okay, nope, got it. And like, that was it. Like we
Right.
didn't need to have a conversation.
Right. But they used like, it's like, in case of emergency, break glass type stuff, right? Like,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what it was. So that it became embedded in our vocabulary, in our conversation, in
I
our
love it. It became part of the culture.
It absolutely became part of the culture. So they would preface that when they need it. And I knew that, okay, I did need to give an answer, because we can have a conversation about it later. We can have a conversation about different opportunities or different solutions or different options.
Right.
But
let's get this thing solved. We're
get this thing
DEFCON
done.
10.
Exactly.
Yep.
They've shut down the surgery center because they're waiting on us to finish to get the
Yeah.
to get the AC.
Right. We're not going to do a whole like conversation about it.
Right.
One of the things that I implemented, and this may not be good for your audience because you guys are in the field a lot, but one of the things that we did in the property management side of things was, if you had a challenge, if it wasn't a DEFCON 10, you put it on a challenges list, and we would discuss it when we had our one-on-one meetings or our department meetings. The funny thing that happened was, they, as the week would go on, guess what? They would solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, oh yeah, I put that issue there, but I took care of it. And so, but that issue would have been something that I had to deal with prior to them, waiting till the meeting. Because they were, especially with technology now, right? You can text, you can call, you can Slack, you can, whatever. You don't do smoke screens anymore or whatever. So 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 the accessibility is so easy. Like, so let me just call the easy button.
Mm-hmm.
And once we told them, hey, we're going to talk about this, unless it's DEFCON 10, we're going to talk about this in the meeting. Like, I think it was like 80-20 rule. 80% of the problems were solved before we even got like, oh yeah, we don't need that. Click. They'd be all like, because they solved them already.
Yeah.
It's nice because now what is that doing? It's empowering them to come up with solutions. They talk amongst themselves. So I had different property managers, working with each other, solving challenges. And I was no longer the superhero.
That's it. Now they're working together to solve problems. And that was going to be my next point, is when you do have an effective team and everyone is in tune with each other's strengths and weaknesses, right? If you're having a problem on this thing, but Pete is really good at this, why you're not going to call me? Why would you call me?
Right.
You're working laterally with each other, as opposed to everything being funneled, and as you use the word, bottlenecked to the top, where you have to make all of the decisions. And it is great. Let's face it. It's so good for your ego, right? Yeah. When people want to ask you questions and you're like, oh yeah, I know the answer. Yeah. It's
detrimental to the organization.
Yeah, it is detrimental. It's detrimental. Pete, tell me about your company.
So VPM
your remote
Solutions,
team members and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, VPM Solutions is it's like a two-sided marketplace. So on one side, you have companies that are looking for help. And on the other side, you have people who live in the US and abroad that are looking for work. So anything that does not require to be physically at a property, in this case, or at an office, like you can't find plumbers through our platform, right? Because they're virtual. Anything that can be done from a computer and a desk, then those are jobs that you can post, and then you can hire them through our platform, and you pay them through the platform. So we source, and you can we onboard, and you pay them. They enter time through a time card. You review it, and then it gets paid out. The way it's all free for you as the company. The way we make money is, let's say you decide to pay that virtual assistant $10 an hour. We charge the virtual assistant on their side 10% or $1 an hour. So that's how it works. So for your people, and most of these people, by the way, we're looking at property management and real estate space. So a lot of these people actually know about property management. They know about accounting. They know about marketing. We have some free training on the platform so that they could take those trainings. And so you can find somebody on the platform, and let's say you want them to be your assistant and do all the, like, invoicing is the easy one, right? They can do all the invoicing or anything that that does not require to be at the property.
Awesome.
And yeah, no, we're in like 120 countries.
Okay.
And I'll give you some real quick figures. The average hourly rate on the platform is about $9 an hour. Right. So, which is a lot different in hiring somebody in the United States. They are contractors. So there is no like, there's no minimum. So if you find somebody and you hire them for a day and you don't like them, you can literally shut the contract down and start another one. And it just depends on what country you're in. Just like it's a little bit more expensive to live in Northern California than it is to live in Houston. It's more expensive to live in Houston than it is in Mexico. It's more expensive to live in Mexico than the Philippines. So if you want to pay less per hour, 9 is kind of the average throughout the whole platform. But if you want to pay less, you can go like to the Philippines, and that average dollar rate is about 7. So, and they're really good with detail stuff. And I know I'm completely stereotyping here, but they're really good with detail stuff. So you can pay whatever you want. If you want to pay $5 an hour, there will be people that will apply to your job at $5 an hour. Mm-hmm. So when people tell me I can't afford somebody, I just laugh. I'm like, if you can't afford $5 an hour, what is that, $200 a week? Then, I mean, to get off one of the, major things on your plate, how much more work can you do? How many more, business can you run, or how much more money will you receive? How much quicker? All because you hired somebody for $200 a week that's doing all your invoicing.
Now, are those remote team members, are they assigned to only you, or do they work for multiple companies at one time?
So it depends, right? So it's called a direct hire. So they should, if you hire somebody for 40 hours a week, most likely they're only going to work for you. Okay. If you hire part-time, then most likely they're going to have multiple companies. We do not manage them. So you would manage the team. They work directly for you. So what's good about that? So the negative is like you have to manage them, right? The positive of that is that you get to really extend your culture down to them, your core values, right? Your business. And so there's some positive and negatives. We do offer what we call the white glove service. It's a free service for the company. And we basically take your hand and we hold your hand through the whole hiring process. Because we understand that, small business owners are terrible at hiring. They don't have a hiring process. So we use our hiring process. So we kind of guide you. But we do not interview folks. That's your job to do. But we can look at resume cards with you. We can post a job with you. We can tell you how to message people, tell you what red tape, right? Because you want to give people a lot of red tape so that they, the ones who actually do it, they really want that job. The ones who don't, they'd probably be terrible workers if you hire them anyway. So there's things like that we can help you with. And again, all of that is free. You just have to, on our website, you just sign up for the white glove service, and we'll walk you through that process.
What's the website?
It's VPM. So Victor, Peter, and Michael. I'm trying to think what P is in
yeah, I don't remember either.
I always forget that one. And meanwhile, my name starts with P, right? So VPM, Victor, Peter, Michael, solutions with an S.com.
Okay. And we'll definitely put that in the show notes so people can check that out. What about your podcast? It's always fun when I get to interview another podcaster.
Yeah. So I actually am the host of the NARPM, NARPM radio podcast. And that podcast is for property managers for single family homes. And so we just talk about all things property management, but a lot of stuff we talk about is business, right? Because all these folks are business owners as well. But yeah, I'm happy to do that for the organization. I do it for free, as part of my giving back to the organization. But yeah, I'm pretty happy. I've been doing it for about 2 years now, so awesome. It's a pretty cool podcast.
Yeah, I like it.
And by the way, if your listeners are listening to this, property managers are great sources. If you can connect with property managers in your area. Now, property managers don't want to pay top dollar, but if you give them a little bit of a discount where if the owner called you directly, it would cost more. They're going to give you lots of business though. The average property manager at NARPM anyway manages 200 units. So when I managed 1,000, all single family when I was in Houston. And so if you were an AC guy and you partner with me, I'm going to give you more business than anybody else out there, right?
Mhm.
And I'm going to give you steady business. But for that, I want a discount.
Yeah.
Right? I want 10 or 15% discount, and just think of it as a marketing fee.
Yeah.
And so you can find people by go to narpm.org, narpm.org, put in the city that you work in, and they'll actually have different chapters, and you can actually find people in that area of town, and just pick up the phone and call
Yeah.
them. We're always, by the way, property managers are always looking for good vendors.
Mm,
Always.
yes. Yes. I had a couple clients that owned several hundred doors. They owned, and one guy owned it both, like he owned it and also had a property management company, kind of like you're talking
Smart.
about.
Yep.
But when we started, it was the same thing. We negotiated some of our rates with them because, I think it was like 600 doors, or something that they had. Most of them were multi-complex, apartment complexes and whatnot, but still, they all had central air,
That's
and
right.
so yeah, we would negotiate a little
Now
bit.
you're maintaining ACs for 600 properties.
Yep, that's
Right.
right.
So, like the guys that don't get it, the guys that don't understand business, they want to make as much money from anybody they meet all the time. And they don't realize, like, Joe homeowner owns one home. And yeah,
Mhm.
okay, so you can stiff him if you want to charge 20% more than what you're supposed to, whatever. But, Joe property manager manages 600 doors, 200 doors. You give that guy a discount and you do good work and you work
Mhm.
within their confines, you will have steady business forever.
Yeah, and we definitely had steady work. And it also, we were exclusively their HVAC contractor.
Oh, that's real nice.
Yeah, they didn't call a single other HVAC contractor. So we kind of had that exclusivity with them. And
Normally what happens is you're one of three, and then if you basically outperform the other two and you become the guy, and then the only time they use somebody else is if they need a secondary quote or something like
Mhm,
that.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So I've had good luck. Um, as time went on, some things changed. Just to kind of give you some context, they ended up hiring basically a maintenance guy that that they managed for all the little stuff. Obviously, in a college town, every time there's a turnover in an apartment, it usually gets new paint, new carpet. So,
yeah,
so they had guys that would do painting and landscaping and cleanup and all of that. And it was getting to the point where we were diagnosing it, but we also had a list of parts like thermostats, filters, different other things that we couldn't change anymore. So we would just diagnose it, and if it was one of those, their maintenance guy would do it.
yeah, they're
Um,
trying to cut costs.
they're trying to cut costs, and that got tough because now I've got a technician out there, and we're only making diagnostics. So I'm losing my ass, you
Right.
know. So, but there's conversations to be had, right? There's,
Yeah,
we're,
absolutely. Yeah. And by the way, most property managers don't own all their real estate.
mhm,
So they're not going to say, I'm going to bring this handyman in. Most of them don't want to be in that business. I tried actually, when I owned my property management firm, I actually tried creating a, like, a maintenance division.
mhm.
And after 10 months, I lost $22,000. I'm like, I'm done. And I
Don't
shut
want to
it
do that.
down.
Yeah,
Yep.
don't want to do that
I
anymore.
don't want to do that anymore. It was,
Um,
you try and fail
yeah.
and you move on.
I've got two final questions for you. You mentioned the book 1 Minute Manager, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. If you could gift one book, what would it be?
Traction by Gino Wickman.
Okay, love it. Um, Joni actually also recommended that book as well. So,
Oh,
um,
Joni Wolfwinkle.
yes, yep. She was on here a week or so. Her episode hasn't come out yet, but it's going to come out a little bit before
Yeah,
yours.
she's a really good property manager here in Houston.
Yeah, she's a beast, man. I enjoyed that conversation with her. The second is there anything that you would share that we haven't touched on?
Man, we touched on a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, not real. I'll share a personal triumph. Is as we're recording this, I had just dropped over 20 pounds since November 6th. So I've applied what I've learned in business to my physical now. And I was an athlete back in the, my 30s, early 40s. I'm in my 50s now, kind of got out of it. Found myself 30 pounds overweight, and now I'm only about 9 pounds overweight.
Yeah.
And so, determination, consistency, tracking, all these things that you do in business, I just apply to calories and steps and lifting and so yeah, so I that's that's a little personal win that I have right now.
I love it. I appreciate you sharing that. Pete, I'm honored to have you on here. I know I am 100% better for it. I've got to learn a lot from you today, and now I get to go away from this conversation and process and digest everything we talked about and figure out how I can use it to make myself better. But I know my listeners are better for it. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I had a blast, man. It's real fun.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Guys, till next time, get shit done.